Every idea starts with a problem. Warby Parker's was simple. Glasses are too expensive. So, they set out to change that. By designing glasses in-house and selling directly to customers, they're able to offer prescription eyewear that's expertly crafted and unexpectedly affordable. Warby Parker glasses are made from premium materials like impact-resistant polycarbonate and custom acetate. And they start at just $95, including prescription lenses. Get glasses made from the good stuff. Stop by a Warby Parker store near you.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. That's why you need Shopify. They'll help you create a convenient, unified command center for whatever your business throws at you, whether you sell online, in-store, or both. You can sell the way you want, attract the customers you need, and keep them coming back. Turn those what-ifs into why-nots with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer. That's shopify.com/special offer.
What if buying a new appliance felt like a win for your home and your wallet? Save up to 50%, plus up to an extra $600 on select major appliances at the Best Buy Appliances Labor Day sale. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour. Yes, it is Connor driving the bus today because LJ got sick just a couple days ago. So he has asked that I carry the torch of host for tonight. So I will be hosting tonight to do my absolute best. Thank you for joining us. It is Cowboys week. It is week 1 of the NFL season. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally made it, and I am so excited. LJ, besides being sick, I mean, you got to at least be excited that football is back, right?
Oh, I'm thrilled that it's back. It figures that I get sick the opening week, and we have the first game on Thursday night against the hated Cowboys. But other than that, yeah, I'm thrilled. I can't wait. I'm glad we're going to be able to talk real football, get to see the starters out there, and just get to see how we pick up from winning the Super Bowl. And obviously, the team all season has said, you know, we're done. That 2024 team was the 2024 team. You know, we're not talking Super Bowl. It's in the rearview mirror. Well, they have this thing called the unveiling of the banner. So there's going to be one more thing. I mean, Sirianni said today that they're going to be in the locker room. They're not even going to be out there for it. They didn't know that the banner was being unveiled, which I think is BS. But, you know, whatever, to each their own. But us as fans, let's just go and enjoy it for what it's worth.
Definitely. But before we dive into the matchup itself, shout out to the Eagles Pinpoll Network. Make sure you're checking us out. You can pretty much type in Eagles Pinpoll everywheres, and you will find us, whether that be for your podcast needs, your Facebook, your YouTube. But we have, I believe it is 9 shows. So we pretty much cover about 5 out of 7 days of the week with 9 different shows. We have the post-game show. We have lots of review shows. We got a college football show. We got all 22 shows. You name it, we have it. So make sure you're checking us out all season long. And of course, when you do so, we have a brand new partnership with DraftKings. So make sure to let them know that the Eagles Pinpoll Network sent you, and by using the code PINPOLL, and you will get $300 in bonus bets when you place your first bet of $5 or more. Plus, if you don't have NFL Sunday Ticket, you can get $200 off your Sunday Ticket subscription. I know as soon as LJ found out about that, he was pretty upset because he would have placed a $5 wager to save $200 on his subscription to Sunday
It's
Ticket.
expensive.
But unfortunately, that he signed up a little too soon. So definitely make sure you let the guys at DraftKings know that we sent you over there. Get some bonus bets and save yourself some money on the Sunday Ticket. And then, of course, make sure you follow the Kelly Green Hour, Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow LJ at LJ Harrell 54 and myself at Connor10 TEN on Twitter as well for just Kelly Green content. First of all, I wanted to start off with we didn't get a chance to react to the 53-man roster and any of the moves that were made last week. LJ, I just wanted to get your reaction. Did anybody not making the roster or any move that Howie made last week surprise you?
Not really. I mean, we know that this team is really front-loaded, like all the starters, most of the starters. I would say 18 to 19 of the 22 starters are like legit potential Pro Bowler, All-Pro type players. Obviously, you know, the right guard is going to be Tyler Steen. We'll see how he can replace Mekhi Becton. We're going to assume that right now Sidney Brown is the starting safety next to Reed Blankenship until Makuba is healthy. And we'll probably see Marcus Epps get some playing time on Thursday night. And then the other corner is going to be Adoree Jackson. And we'll see what happens there. It wouldn't surprise me if, depending on how this game goes on Thursday, how he has said that he's willing to use his draft capital for next year, which I think 12, 13 picks to improve the team. Now, obviously, doing it week 1 or week 2, it would be tough just because all these teams, they think they're in it. They think they have a chance. But how he always keeps his ear to the ground. He's always looking to improve the team. So what the team looks like now, going into week 1, it won't look the same in a month. It won't look the same, by midway through the season. It won't look the same when I'm going to Minnesota in October to watch the Eagles-Vikings game. It's going to look different. So we'll see what happens. And I will, a warning to Eagles fans out there, and I said it last year too. It's probably going to be a slow start. Let's not, and obviously a slow start. Philadelphia fans are rational. They won't go out there and build a Super Bowl championship team. That hasn't happened before in the city. 2018, the Eagles at halftime against the Falcons. But yeah, so what the team looks like now, even after week 1, going to look different. How we will look to make improvements. And as long as they stay in it, which we believe that they will, it wouldn't shock me if he makes a move if Adoree Jackson or Jacorian Bennett aren't up to snuff at the second cornerback spot, or Sidney Brown, Marcus Epps, Andrew Makuba aren't up to snuff at the safety spot. So yeah. We'll definitely see.
I completely agree with you. To me, there was really no surprises. I think that we were kind of expecting it when we were talking about it earlier in the off season. We were expecting about 45 of these 53 positions were pretty much locks. It was just was Howie gonna see the need at safety or see the need at corner CB2 like the fans and the media see the need at those positions, and clearly Howie does not see the need the same way, and that's okay. He clearly thinks that he clearly sees a lot more in this roster than some people, and generally they see this every year. They feel the same way every year about this stuff. So to me, nothing's really a surprise as much as some people want it, Justin Simmons, or wanted more of a move made at CB2. It just never really came to fruition that he felt the same way. I get that. And obviously Vic Fangio, if he felt he couldn't work with what was there, we know that Vic has a lot of pull on the defensive side of the ball, and a lot of the people that are there since Vic came are there because Vic wanted them there, not because Howie wanted them there necessarily. And so we know that Vic knows what he's working with and he knows what he's going to do with those guys. So really there was no surprises to me. It is what it is. We know that there's a lot of an investment on the offensive side of the ball. Howie knows there's some big contract extensions coming up that he has to work on, and he wants to roll over as much of that cap space as humanly possible. And if he does have to go make a move during the season, we know he's full of draft capital, and we know that what he has for draft capital now is not what it's going to look like at the end of the season, and it's not what it's going to look like when the draft comes. There's a good chance he could have even more draft capital, because in every deal that Howie makes, he always is getting draft picks back. No matter how many draft picks he seems to give up, he gets the same amount or more back. So you know that he's always working to improve their position or just to keep the same amount of draft capital in-house. So it'll be interesting to see, but yeah, no surprises here for me either. So, and then I guess let's start with the elephant in the room for this Dallas Cowboys matchup and the Micah Parsons deal that happened. I know we would have talked a lot, probably almost exclusively about Micah Parsons on the defensive side of the ball if he were on this team, and he is not. So, I mean, like, it went from, there was rumors that Green Bay was kind of in, but Dallas wasn't really listening. And then suddenly Dallas was quietly listening to offers. And then suddenly, boom, the trade was made. And it was 2 firsts and Kenny Clark for Micah Parsons. What was your, and then he got, of course, a mega extension that was expected by whoever acquired him. I think it makes him $47 million per year. And his guarantees are over 100. Yeah, as I say, over $130 million. So I guess besides the fact that we're cheering that Jerry did this and we want Jerry to live forever, what was your take on this for, this is a young up and coming Green Bay Packers team who seems to just be some, Jordan Love making some better decisions away from being extremely well positioned in the NFC. So what's your thoughts on the trade overall, the contract, what it's going to do for future non-QB contracts?
Well, the contract was crazy, but before I get to that, Jerry Jones definitely butchered this because he could have traded him before the draft. He could have got somebody to help him this year. I know they got Kenny Clark, 30-year-old Pro Bowl type player, but like, if you would have done this before the draft, you could have potentially got a Kenny Clark plus something in this year's draft. I know the Packers are still drafting in the 20s, but like these 2 first-round picks are going to be in the 20s, 22 or later, 23, 24 or 5 later, because you would anticipate Green Bay being good. Green Bay at least making it to the definitely divisional round, maybe the conference championship, if not the Super Bowl. But yeah, Jerry Jones definitely butchered this, and the fact that Micah Parsons said that he wanted to, be a Cowboy for life. And I don't know, like, it's a different world now compared to in the past when you can potentially negotiate with a player. There's agents for a reason. Jerry wanted to give him a 5-year deal. Michael wanted a 4-year deal. He's making all that money now, and he'll be a free agent again when he's 30, so he can get another big time contract. So I just think the way that Jerry Jones handled it, he butchered it. I mean, calling him Michael, in press conferences. Yeah, it was crazy when I saw it. And then obviously the big time contract, it was nuts. From an Eagles standpoint, Green Bay was going to be a competitor, obviously, in the NFC for the Eagles. Now, maybe Detroit would have won the North, but now Green Bay is definitely in the running. Obviously, they were still in the running. It still comes down to coaching and Jordan Love and, health, because Michael Parsons has an L4, L5 fracture in his back. He's going to have to take an epidural to play pretty much every week. And so we'll see what happens on that, in that matter. But it does make Green Bay that much tougher for the Eagles. And we have to see Green Bay week 10, and we have to go to Lambeau. So that'll, I think it's week 10. So that'll be, fun just to have that matchup. And I know, the Eagles were being diplomatic when asked about it. Jordan Mailata was just saying, look, Dallas does great. Still good defense. Obviously it's nice not having to face Micah Parsons twice a year, which they still might have to this year. They got one in the regular season, might have to see them in the playoffs. You never know. But yeah, the one thing I think is funny is Dallas fans trying to spin this now, trying to say, oh, Micah wasn't all that. We're going to be better without Micah. Let's be real. He was your best player. Now, the Eagles and a lot of teams were able to, did he get a sacks? Yes, he got a sacks. But you're able to neutralize him by running right at him, getting rid of the ball. The Eagles seemed to have him in a bind every time they played because they would do run pass options at him. They would just run right at him. It helps when you have Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata where you didn't need the chip. And not every team has that. So it'll be interesting, like with Green Bay, when you have Rashawn Gary and you have Micah Parsons coming off the edge, how teams are going to defend that. So like their first game, I think, is Detroit this weekend. That'll be interesting to see how Detroit's offensive line, which is usually comparable to the Eagles, see how they handle that. But yeah, like I was shocked that he traded him because Jerry did all this lip service saying, I can have him under contract this year, then we could franchise him for the next 2 years. He was like their most popular player. So yeah, if it makes Dallas worse now, it makes Dallas worse now, but you never know like how they draft. Obviously they still have Dak's ridiculous contract that's kind of weighing them down, but they have Dak's contract, CD's contract. They were able to give Deron Bland. They gave Bland a lot of money. I'm shocked. They want to give Tyler Smith money. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, like it was definitely interesting that they did that at that time. But it doesn't shock me that Jerry butchered this. And as you said, I hope he stays alive forever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The timing of it was not smart by Jerry Jones by any stretch. I know he says, circumstances changed before the draft. It wasn't in consideration to trade him. Then things started to go downhill a bit more after the draft with Micah Parsons. But I agree. I guess you could argue CeeDee Lamb or Micah Parsons, but I would say Micah Parsons was the best player on their team, even between CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons alone did what he did for that defense and made that defense so good. And they brought in Dante Fowler, and Dante Fowler obviously was going to be a 10.5 sack guy going on the other side of a guy who had 12 sacks last season. And now you go to a 10.5 sack Dante Fowler who on his own is probably not going to be anywhere close to Micah Parsons or putting up that type of production, because look at the interior of that Commanders defensive line that helped him and supported him in getting some of those sacks and doing what he was able to do last season. And now he goes with a rookie not a rookie. He's in his second year, but he doesn't have a sack yet in the NFL, I think, as the starter across from him. So it definitely makes things a lot easier for teams because the pressure may not necessarily be there, obviously. And we know that guys like Deron Bland, although he got paid a lot of money and may look, based on financially like a CB1, and Trayvon Diggs got a lot of money, we both know that they can give up a lot of yards. And the longer that those plays have to build and be created, those guys are going to give up yardage. They're going to give up passes, lots of passing yards. We've seen it before. So I just think overall, I understand what you're saying. Could the picks translate into something else? We've watched the Dallas Cowboys draft in the range that these picks are probably going to be Green Bay-wise in the past, and they have not necessarily panned out all that well for Dallas. We know that Dallas doesn't draft the best either, so it'll be really interesting to see. And they said they won't rule out using that draft.
Drafting is actually one thing they do well, but and you said in that time, Mozzie Smith, everybody was like, the Dallas fans were like, oh, he's going to be better than Jalen Carter. He sucks. He barely can get on the field. It seems like he's not even a starter for them because they have Kenny Clark and Odigizua, I think I said his name right, as the starting defensive tackles. They feel that they have the depth, and we'll see what happens. But you have the road graders of the Eagles offensive line coming down with Saquon, and Jalen. It's gonna take. You're gonna have to find a way to get pressure after the quarterback, and you mentioned Dante Fowler, and they have high hopes for Sam Williams. We'll see what happens, but for the immediate, they made themselves worse.
Definitely much worse, but we're okay with that. I mean, they were a 7-10 team, and I was giving them by a stretch 9-8 or 8-9, and I think I could see them going 7-10 again. I don't know what Jerry sees in this team without Micah Parsons and makes him say we might reinvest these draft picks to get players, because I don't think this team is there. I think the picks are probably going to be more important. And like you said, they have the Dak contract, which is a beast in itself, but they locked CeeDee Lamb up. They have George Pickens. Like, they don't have a bad offense necessarily. It's just really unfortunate that they took out their best player now, and it makes that defense, I think, significantly weaker. But beyond the Micah Parsons deal, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys offense. Like you said, so we have Dak Prescott. He was kind of banged up last season.
Before we jump into that,
Yep, fire away.
We didn't get a chance to do our season preview show where we do all the divisions and give our playoff picks and all that. Do you want to do do you have a Super Bowl matchup that you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I do have a Super Bowl matchup in mind. So I do have that. I didn't go through each division.
I didn't either.
That's why I
didn't go through each division either. That's why I didn't ask for that. It's just, what's your Super Bowl prediction? Who's going to be
the Ravens?
Santa Clara?
I got the Ravens and the Eagles. That's who I think. I think the Eagles go back. I think the Eagles are still the bet. I think that the Lions are probably going to regress without Ben Johnson in the picture. I think even the teams that take the next step up, I mean, like, do I see like the Vikings being able to do the same thing again this year as they did last year with JJ McCarthy at the helm? I don't think so. So I feel like overall, like the Dallas Cowboys, they were always somebody to watch. But without Micah Parsons, I mean, I was having a hard time giving them 9-8 and 10-7, but that's enough to would have been enough to squeeze into the playoffs, and who knows what happens. Do I think the averaged aged Washington Commanders, who's the oldest team in 2 decades in the NFL, do I think that they're going to be able to continue to play at the level they were playing? Eventually, some of that roster is bound to regress. So I think that a lot of the teams that were really good or made the NFC so competitive last year, for the most part, are more likely to take steps back than the Philadelphia Eagles are to take that step back. I guess the only one that I might fear would be the 49ers, and I know that the 49ers as a team may not strike fear, but you have to remember all the injuries. This team was so banged up last season. They were just limping to the end of the season just to get out of the season. And now, thanks to that, they get one of the easier schedules in the NFL as a team that is much superior in my mind than the schedule that they are getting based on what happened last season. So they're probably the ones that I'd be most nervous about. AFC side, you can't rule out the Chiefs, but I mean, I feel like the Ravens got to make it eventually. They continue to have great offseason after great offseason. DeCosta's such a great general manager. Him and Howie Roseman duke it out for executive of the year every year, in my personal opinion. And they continue to get players every offseason that makes them better without losing too significant of pieces that would make them regress. So that's why I got the Ravens. I think that the Chiefs I feel like we say it every year that they're bound to regress, but I feel like this is a Ravens year. I just have a feeling that this is a Ravens year, and the Chiefs have been there so much. Although now with, the engagement of Swift and Kelsey, maybe the NFL and the refs will want to push a little more for some KC love and getting them further. But beyond conspiracy theories, I do think it's the Ravens and the Eagles.
I actually have the same matchup, Eagles and Ravens. I do expect Cincinnati to be a little bit better. I still think the defense is going to be trash, but I think offensively they should still be able to move the ball. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Chase Brown. So I think they'll make the playoffs this year. And the Bills, obviously, I think this is their last year in that stadium in Highmark, and then they'll be going to their new place. I wanted to go to the Eagles-Bills game so bad, but with it being week 17, the weekend after Christmas, it's a bit tough, especially with Buffalo weather, which is so unpredictable. The Chiefs, obviously, as you mentioned, maybe the Chargers, but again, I don't have faith in Justin Herbert. I still hate when people try to proclaim he's a top 5-6 quarterback in the NFL, and what has he done to prove that? But then Jalen Hurts, has been to 2 Super Bowls. Just all he does is win, and people say he's being carried. Whatever. All he does is win, and that's all that matters. But yeah, so I just think I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. They got Malachi Starks, who I wanted the Eagles to draft. They have a really good defense, and I think it'll be a really fun matchup. That matchup when the Eagles went to Baltimore and beat them last year, that was, fun, pretty, a physical game, and that's what the Super Bowl will be. So I also have the Eagles and Ravens, and we did not discuss that before this. Connor didn't even know I was going to ask him the question.
It wasn't even ready. Just pulled what I had out of my hat of what I thought of the teams, but Yeah, no, we will see if that matchup does come to fruition.
We're last year, we're last year, the year before, we were both on Green Bay, and Green Bay didn't. Hopefully, it's not the Eagles.
I think it was 2 years ago that we
Okay.
were on I feel like it was like the first real Jordan Love experience. I don't think it was last year, but yeah, I remember that year. We have tried to be high on the Green Bay Packers before. So even with the Micah Parsons deal in place and Micah Parsons debuted in this week, we digress on being too high on them right now. So back to the matchup at hand, the Eagles versus the Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, obviously the Eagles coming off the Super Bowl victory last season. The Dallas Cowboys going 7-10, getting rid of Mike McCarthy, signing Brian Schottenheimer just so that Jerry Jones could say, watch me do something you say I'm not going to do. And he continues to one-up himself as this offseason continues on. But on the offensive side of the ball, obviously we didn't necessarily see the offense that we were expecting to see from the Dallas Cowboys because of a Dak Prescott injury throughout the season. So maybe that was just a blessing in disguise to be able to get rid of Mike McCarthy. And now we move to a Schottenheimer offense that definitely focuses more on like a slower run first approach. And they bring in a new tandem in the backfield, or trio in the backfield of Javonte Williams, Jaden Blue, and Miles Sanders. And then, of course, they brought in George Pickens as well in the offseason, CeeDee Lamb. They drafted Tyler Booker, hopefully to address right guard. So what are your thoughts overall as far as this Cowboys offense with Dak Prescott back, some of this new weaponry in place, and how they match up against this Philadelphia Eagles defense?
So first off, Brian Schottenheimer is the Temu version of Nick Sirianni, I think. But Jerry likes to have the puppets that he can control. And we'll see how it works. But nobody was thinking about interviewing him. But again, nobody was thinking about interviewing Nick Sirianni either. But I don't think Schottenheimer's going to have that success. Usually has success against the Eagles. What is he, like 9-4 or whatever in his career against the Eagles? But we have very rarely seen Prescott versus Hurts. Now, I know they don't face each other, but obviously they lead their teams at the quarterback position. They do have weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and that's why the CB2 and the Satan not having a stable second safety does bother me a little bit for the Eagles defense. We expect Q to travel. Say he travels with CD, but CD also does like to avoid the work, and he goes into the slot. Well, it's fortunate that we do have Cooper DeJean that can play the slot. Pickens, he's a good receiver. We'll see if he can control himself, if he's not getting the targets that he thinks he deserves. I think this is a contract year for him. So, he wants to get paid. And he also has the same agent that Micah Parsons has. Just saying. The running backs don't scare me one bit. I think of the three, Jaden Blue probably would be the one that will eventually become the guy for them. We know Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams couldn't stay healthy in Denver. I actually think I wanted the Eagles to draft Javonte or Jaden Blue, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember that far back about my mock drafts, but Jaden Blue would have been a nice pickup for the Eagles. That offensive line I have so much faith in Jalen Carter. I know we haven't seen him since the Super Bowl, it seems like, but I think Jalen Carter is in for a monster year. The battle between him and Booker, him and Smith, him and whoever he's going to be going up against, I think it's going to be fun. Matchup on the line of scrimmage, excuse me. Yeah, but it's going to come down to can Adoree Jackson, Ja'Cory Bennett, whoever that second CB is, can, cover Pickens or other receivers, Tolbert, or we don't know yet if Q is going to travel. Obviously, that's been talked about. We'll see what CeeDee Lamb does again. In Mike McCarthy's offense, he was in the slot a lot to get him away from, the top corners. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm intrigued by this matchup. And look, we haven't seen this Eagles offense. The Eagles use the first 4 weeks as their preseason. Like, let's be real. That's what the Eagles do. We don't see the starters at all in the preseason. So, but Dak also hasn't played in the preseason. I don't think CD did either. He got ran over by a ref in LA. Pickens did. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun battles. I think obviously the Eagles are the better team. The Eagles have the better talent. It's just going to be a matter of can they get off to a fast start.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in that point. There's going to be a lot of rust to come off for both of these teams. Dak Prescott has had the opportunity to practice with George Pickens, sometimes with whether it be in pads or without pads. But like you said, is George Pickens going to be, is he going to play good, be good, and not complain when he's not the lead head of the targets like he was in Pittsburgh? Because obviously CeeDee Lamb is going to get a lot of those targets. It is difficult to know, what is Vic Fangio's strategy? Is he going to test Q out, moving him around up against like an elite talent like CeeDee Lamb and see if he can be that move guy? Obviously, we're all fairly confident he can be that guy, but he wasn't tasked with that job last season. So it'll be interesting to see if he's tasked with that job, what it would look like and if he would be able to effectively do that job. We do have Cooper DeJean. Where's he going to play? When he's going to play? Who knows? That's one of the biggest reasons I think that the Eagles didn't take a look at safety and were not afraid to go light at safety. They like Reed Blankenship. He's in a contract year. He is probably at some point this season going to get a big contract extension, and that episode will be one of sadness for LJ, because he's not a huge Reed Blankenship fan. I'm not the biggest Reed Blankenship fan either, but he's earned it. He got the C. He's a captain. I just don't see a way that he gets out of this season without an extension. He's one of those guys I feel like is going to be prioritized.
And he just signed with the Athletes First management groups.
Yeah. So he's prepping. He knows he's prepping to get that contract done. So that's why I think one of the biggest reasons I think safety wasn't a need is they know they're confident in Reed Blankenship. He plays 90% of the snaps. They have Cooper DeJean that they can kick up there. Makuba and Brown are probably going to split fairly strong, fairly down the middle, whatever's left over for time at the safety position. CB2, I agree with you. I think that's one spot where Dak can exploit that. Like if CeeDee Lamb is getting shut down because he's either being followed by Q or he moves into the slot where Cooper DeJean is and he's just not finding ways to get open. George Pickens is a guy that you can do the famous Dak Prescott YOLO ball and he's going to come down with it. We saw him do it so many times in Pittsburgh, just catching balls that were heaved up there, hoping that somebody was out there. He's a guy who not the same degree, like not the same acumen, not the same route running of Devontae Smith, but you've seen him make catches like Devontae Smith where you're like, how did that guy get up there? How did that guy come down with that ball type of thought when I'm thinking in that comparison. Yeah, the running backs don't scare me at all. Javonte Williams, he's showing some stuff, but he's showing to be really inconsistent and injury prone. Miles Sanders hasn't really shown to be much in the past couple years. Jane Blue, we did talk about him throughout the offseason, and we did share mock drafts. So we both had Jane and Blue at certain points because we felt, that speed was something that would be so unique to the backfield because we know Saquon Barkley. But Will Shipley, we've seen the breakaway speed just isn't there. He gets away, but it seems to he blows a tire at some point throughout the run and can't finish the run like we would like to see, whereas Jane Blue is one of those guys who would be able to go 0 to 100, finish his run and finish his play. So I agree with you on that point. Like, I don't think that there's much to fear there, but that they're going to try and run the ball a lot, and that they're going to try and establish a run game. It's the Brian Schottenheimer mentality to kind of grind games out and to use that run game to try and set something up, and we'll see what they set up. Can't discount Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson's really good, but I also think we have some incredible linebackers. And if you have Makuba out there, Makuba showed in the preseason he's a ball hawk. He's very intelligent. So I really think that we have the matchups we have a lot of great matchups when going up against the offensive weapons, except for the CB2. And what does that look like? How often is it George Pickens against Adoree Jackson or Ja'Cory Bennett for the majority of the game? Or are we going to see some other things happening and Q not be moving around and Q be on whatever side of the field and Pickens is there or whoever's there at the time? It'll be interesting to see what happens. On the offensive line side of things, this offensive line is average at best. They continue to try and build it. They had Martin retire this offseason, which came as kind of a shock and kind of a major hit to that team. They had to suddenly address a need that they didn't necessarily have when they went into the offseason. It's like Jalen Carter. As soon as you have Jalen Carter, you know that it's the three other defensive linemen we have against three offensive linemen. Jalen Carter is going to be double teamed almost every snap on Thursday night against the Dallas Cowboys because they're going to need it. While they have a decent interior offensive line, you know that you need help. And we're going to see, can Jalix Hunt continue to bring what we saw down the backstretch at the end of last season and into the playoffs? Is he going to bring that same game that we were seeing and continue to excel? Moro Ojomo stepping into a role that he definitely wasn't a part of last season. Nolan Smith, is he going to continue to excel and become a guy who's getting 10 to 15 sacks regularly? It's going to be really interesting to see. I feel confident with the linebackers, but obviously we don't necessarily always see the linebackers rushing in. But I feel like we have gone from a team that doesn't value linebacker to a team I'm very highly confident in at linebacker, especially considering Nakobe Dean is not even in the picture yet and likely won't be till about week 5. Jeremiah Trotter had a great preseason. Jihad Campbell, he fell in the first round because of the injuries, but he was considered a very high-end first-end talent prior to the injuries for a reason. So I think we have enough of the matchups that we can make it work, but we've seen in the past when teams find a weakness and are able to go after, whether it's quick passes, whether it's going after a weak CB2 or a weaker cornerback somewhere, we've seen teams be able to take advantage of that and throw the defense off. Hopefully we don't see that, and hopefully the right decisions have been made in those questionable positions along the defense.
Football is back, and every touchdown brings you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Your season starts now. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code PINPULL. That's code PINPULL to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first bet of $5 or more, plus over $200 off of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resorts, Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bet expires 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital game and commercial users excluded. Restrictions may apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. Limited time offer.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Got a car to sell but no time to waste? Hop on to Carvana.com to get a real offer for your car in seconds. All you have to do is enter your license plate, answer a few quick questions, and if you accept the offer, Carvana will pay you as soon as you hand the keys over. They even offer same-day pickup in many cities. Save your time, score some cash, and sell your car the convenient way to Carvana. Pickup times vary. Fees may apply.
Yeah, I agree. I'm hoping we don't miss Darius Slay and CJ obviously. You mentioned the defensive ends. Nolan Smith, see if he can continue his progression. Jalix Hunt and Uche and Azeez Ojulari. Let's see if they can contribute. It's going to be very important for these guys surrounding Jalen Carter to do some damage, to be disruptive, so that teams might have to double think, might have to, think extra long about, do we really want to keep doubling Jalen Carter and if everybody else is beating us? Maybe teams are going to go in there saying, let's not let Jalen Carter beat us. And if somebody else does, it happens. But yeah, it's going to be important because Dak likes to get rid of the ball quick, and he's going to just get the ball into the hands of his playmakers and let them try to do damage. And it's going to be important for the defense to tackle. We can't have a bunch of missed tackles like we had early in the season last year.
Yeah, and as much as, people talk about Moro Jomo and the breakout and Jalix Hunt and the breakout and the continued progression of a guy like Nolan Smith, we do have to remember there's a lot of stuff that has changed within this defense. There's a turnover at the edge one position. There's a turnover along the defensive line. There's a new CB2 in town. There's a new safety 2 in town. So I think it's important to note that it's going to take time, and we've seen it in the past where the first few weeks, even last year, there was a lot of miscommunication and things weren't looking good on defense because this is a complex defense for some of these guys, and going from practicing in a practice pace versus the actual in-game pace, we could see some bumps in the road for this defense. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm not aware of it and not prepared to see some of that happening for the first handful of weeks as they adjust and as they figure out some of these positions and who's going to fit there, who needs to play how much. Because people kind of assume Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt can assume these probably 60% plus snap roles, but I don't necessarily see that as being realistic. Same with like Moro Jomo. I don't necessarily see those as being realistic to start the season at a minimum, but as the season progresses, like, don't overreact and think, oh no, the breakout's not happening. Oh, we overrated Moro Jomo. We overrated Jalix Hunt. He still needs more development. They're still both really young. They're taking on new roles, significant roles, different roles in this defense. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some growing pains that are going to frustrate people and get the media and some fans going on saying, oh, we made the wrong decision at certain positions that are just taking some time to pan out. Let's flip to the other side of the ball. So the Dallas Cowboys, we already kind of beat the Micah Parsons horse at the start of the episode and the impact that that's going to have on this defense. But then we look at to the Philadelphia Eagles offensive side of the ball. Not a whole lot has changed over there. Obviously, Darius Cooper, John Mechie come in as a wide receiver 4 and 5. Didn't see much of those positions last year. Don't expect those two to change how much we see of the wide receiver 4 or 5. Dallas Goedert's back and healthy. Landon Dickerson looks like he's going to be playing. He missed practice yesterday with a back injury unrelated to the knee injury that he had surgery for just 2 weeks ago.
He practiced today, though.
But he did practice today. And then otherwise, it's been a fairly clean injury report, otherwise with some limited participants for those who've been banged up throughout the offseason. So, I mean, other than Tyler Steen, who we saw last year, we were comfortable with at times last year when Mekhi Becton went down, the offense is pretty much the same. So what's your take on this offense going up against Dallas Cowboys defense that is down their best player?
Well, you did mention, you said there's not much change. I think the big change is Kevin Patula is now calling plays. It's not Kellen Moore.
Very true. Very true.
And that's big. That's key because he's never done it before in an NFL game. Now he's been around this team for 5 years. Ever since Sirianni's been here, he's been here. So, I mean, that is a big change. We got to see how he adapts to certain situations in a game because it is different than practice and you have things scripted. You got to be able to think outside the box. You got to be able to adjust on the fly. So that's definitely going to be important. And we've seen how in-house hires at the offensive coordinator position have gone recently. Going back to Brian Johnson, and how that didn't go over so well, even with going back to Doug Peterson when he tried to give it to Press Taylor. It didn't go over so well. I think it was Press Taylor anyway. So, that's obviously key number one. I expect Jalen to be Jalen. And again, all he does is win. I don't care if he throws the ball 50 times and throws for 400 yards or if he throws the ball 10 times and they run for 250 yards. It doesn't matter as long as they have more points than the other team. And he doesn't care either. I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback just didn't care about his stats. All he cares about is winning, and that's Jalen. And I hate that people just go all – people are just like, oh, Jalen needs to play this certain way. He doesn't need to play anyway. All he needs to do is win. I don't care how it looks. Just win. Will it be frustrating at times? Sure. But it doesn't matter if they have more points scored than the other team. It'll be interesting to see if Trayvon Diggs plays this week. I think he's going to play. In the interview, he said he's uncertain about this week, but he'll definitely be back by week 4. I thought that was kind of pretty funny, but I think I actually think he's playing. I think he's playing but I think he'll be out there on Thursday night against the Eagles. I think the Eagles at the receiver position with the starters, with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, have the advantage over, Trayvon Diggs and DaRon Bland. Trayvon Diggs and DaRon Bland are big play guys. They want to pick sixes. They can be beat easily with double moves. And we've seen it before with this Eagles team. Devontae Smith has cooked DaRon Bland. A.J. Brown has cooked Trayvon Diggs. It can happen. So we know that the Eagles were primarily a running team last year. I mean, they're not going to give up. They're not going to not run the football with Saquon, but I do think they're going to try to throw it a little bit more. I think we're going to see more downfield passes. The Eagles didn't do it a lot last year, but I think one of the Eagles' best plays was the deep ball to A.J. Brown. They did that on 3rd and 4th down a couple of times last year against the Giants, against the Browns, just to name a couple. So I think Patula might be more inclined to call those type of plays. The Eagles' offensive line, I just think they're so good. And obviously, we've talked about Tyler Steen being the weakness. The right guard has been the weakness for these Eagles, quote-unquote weakness, and we say that because you have 4 Pro Bowlers to All-Pro types at the other positions. So, you have to have a weakness somewhere. It just happens to be right guard. Kenny Clark could potentially be lining up against Steen. I think that's a matchup to watch out for. Maybe the Eagles double team whenever they need to there. When you don't have to worry about a guy like Micah Parsons, and the Eagles weren't one to double team him, because when you have Lane Johnson and you have Jordan Mailata, you didn't really need to, but they can help out elsewhere now, whether it's Dante Fowler, potentially, whether it's Kenny Clark, or whether it's Osa Azigidua, however you say his name. And it'll be interesting to see what Eberflus does with the defense. Is he going to blitz, his linebackers? DeMarvion Overshawn he's not going to play this week, most likely. And he's one of their more athletic guys. He seems, whenever watching a Dallas game when he was healthy, like he seemed to be all over the field. So to be, when he gets back, how that changes up the defense. I just think the Eagles are better. They have more talent on the offense than Dallas has on their defensive side of the football, and they're going to have to take advantage of that. Again, you don't want to let a team like Dallas, that's definitely not as good as you are, stay in it, because then it gives them faith. They think that they can win the game. So you have to jump on them early, get out quick, and then if you're able to, get out quick, and then you can go to your game plan you want to do. You can go to running the football to kill the clock and to get out of there with a W. But I expect the Eagles offense to put up some points.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, besides the Kevin Patula and how's he going to be as a play caller? I mean, I guess we have to hopefully give him a fair shake and fair opportunity and not think back to the Brian Johnson and the Press Taylor days, and kind of have some faith that Kevin Patula has been around longer than some of those other guys when they were given the keys to the car. So it'll be interesting to see, the first 2 or 3 weeks, he's got to get, obviously the preseason was very vanilla. He just had this small few pages of a handbook that they said, call these plays and stick to this. And he probably did what he wanted within that rule, but now he has the opportunity to call it the way he wants it. And we know that a lot of the offense goes around what Jalen Hurts sees prior to the snap as well. We see him do a lot of changing of things at the line of scrimmage. We see the RPOs, we see the play action passes, we see a lot of that stuff that ultimately the play is called by the offensive coordinator, but the decision of what actually is happening throughout the play and the progression of the play is really Jalen Hurts. So we'll see how Kevin Patula calls a game, because the flow of the game is more controlled by an offensive coordinator, whereas what is actually happening within the offense and at the line of scrimmage is more Jalen Hurts controlling that. So it'll be interesting to see where they go and how they mesh together. Like you said, I guess the advantage is he has been around for a while. He's seen things that don't work. He's seen things that work. So let's hope that he has taken a lot of good notes about the things that do work, and he's going to take full advantage of those. I agree with you. They like to hand the ball off a lot to Saquon Barkley, but to take those shots, we saw in the Super Bowl that shot to Devontae Smith that ended up as a touchdown. We've seen countless times the A.J. Brown shot. We've seen those times over the middle with Dallas Goedert making big third and mid to long type plays that lead to first downs. We know that there's plays there in the playbook, and there's players out there that Jalen Hurts is extremely confident in. And I agree with you. I think they are going to probably throw the ball a little more. They ran the ball at just such a historic rate last year that I don't know if it's sustainable to run it at that rate again this year, especially, with Saquon Barkley going for 2,000 plus yards. And I think it was like 350-ish odd carries. I just don't know if that's going to be sustainable this year. And they're probably going to want to pull back a bit. I'm not saying a lot, but probably going to want to pull back a bit on Saquon Barkley because they did re-extend him, meaning that they have to kind of get him through the next 2 to 3 years where the money's there that he has to be here because the money is so rich on the dead money.
I will say this.
Get rid of him.
I'll worry about 2 years down the road. I want to win another Super Bowl. So if that means riding Saquon, you ride Saquon.
Yeah, hopefully, if you ride Saquon, it doesn't lead to any type of injury. We've seen, I don't think he's injury prone. Like I said last year, a lot of his injuries in New York were just freak accidents, like stepping on ankles and just random things that are not signs of, being injury prone. So hopefully, last year was a sign that this is Saquon Barkley. If you protect him and he protects himself, he is going to be effective and he'll take as much of the workload as he needs. But then offensive line versus defensive line, like you said, Tyler Steen is the weakness. And at times, if you go back to some of the training camp comments and notes from some of the beat writers that were there was really good days. There was really bad days. I guess the benefit is that you're going up against a defensive line that is far inferior to what they were 3 or 4 days ago when you were preparing for them. And hopefully that's a way for Tyler Steen to get comfortable and get confident because it's not always great to be tossed right into the fire and be left alone because your right tackle, Lane Johnson, has to manage Micah Parsons one-on-one the entire night or the majority of the night. You don't want to just be thrown into that fire. So the ability for Tyler Steen to hopefully build some confidence against not bad defensive linemen. Kenny Clark, he's learning a defensive playbook from scratch. So it's probably going to be pin the ears back and good luck to this week. But like you said, Odighizuwa Clark are not bad players, but they're not to the top level of some of the other talent that Tyler Steen is going to run into later on this season. I guess beyond just staying healthy, getting out of this game healthy, I agree with you. I can see a lot of points being put up by this Philadelphia Eagles offense. And hopefully Kevin Petula, we see some promise and some good things, and he doesn't hold this offense back at all.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how that goes. But I'm definitely anticipating a slow start, and maybe getting into the second half, they'll start getting rolling.
All right, so now prediction time. Keys to the win. Keys to get in the win. And a player on offense and a player on defense that you're watching. I guess let's start with the keys to the game, players to watch, and then I'll do keys to the game, players to watch, and then we'll predict together.
Obviously, keys to the game, protect the football. Don't turn the ball over. Because if you let Dallas get a couple of turnovers and they stay in the game, that they think they can win it, and that's how inferior teams usually beat superior teams. So my biggest key to the game is protect the football. On the offensive side of the ball, my player, I'm going to go A.J. Brown. I think A.J. is going to have a spectacular season, and I think it's going to get started this week. They're going to throw the ball a little bit more than they did last year. They might start by trying to run the football, and then try to open up the pass game, and I think A.J. is going to have a big day. And on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go Cooper DeJean, and I'm going to go Coop because I think CD is going to try to avoid Q. So he'll go into the slot, and that's where Cooper excels. So I'm going with A.J. Brown and Cooper DeJean as my players to watch.
Yeah, keys to the game for me. We've seen, as much as we kind of have seemed to throw shade at Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, rightfully so. They've had games where they gave up 150 yards, and they have games where they have 2 touchdowns and one's a pick six, or 2 interceptions and one's a pick six. So you don't want to turn the ball over against them because they can make big things happen with those turnovers. Not only does it give them the confidence that they are in the game and they can stay in the game, it also gives them the opportunity to maybe turn it into a pick six, or at a lesser worst case scenario, they turn it into a big return and they get really good field position. So protect the ball, no fumbles, no interceptions. On the defensive side of the ball, the defense is far in my opinion, our defense is far superior to their offense. They have some good players, obviously, but I don't see a reason why we shouldn't be able to get home and make Dak's night difficult. Dak Prescott hasn't played meaningful football in a little while because of his injury. So he is probably going to be a little bit there's going to be some rust to get off. He's working with a new running backs. He's working with a new wide receiver too. There's a lot of change within this offense, weapon wise, offensive line wise. So there's going to be some things that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be working out, whereas the Eagles, the majority of that defensive line are guys who have been here. They may be in bigger roles, but they've been here. So get home. This was something we preached so much last season. Get home, get pressure. This is a team that you can definitely get pressure on Dak Prescott. You can definitely take advantage. Sometimes he tries to hold the ball too long to let a bigger play transpire. Sometimes he gets the ball out quick. Take advantage of those plays where he's taking too long or making a mistake or making a misstep. Because I know that this defense can definitely do it, if only the defensive line doing it for us. Offensively, I wanted to go A.J. Brown as well. I think it's an A.J. Brown game, but I also think it's going to be a Dallas Goedert game. They do have decent safeties, but their linebackers, they're going with Kenneth Murray, who's moved around the NFL, not finding necessarily the success that he's been looking for. The coverage on Dallas Goedert isn't necessarily going to be strong, and I think that that's a guy that Jalen Hurts, you started to see him when Dallas Goedert came back from his injury. You started to see he only made 2, 3, 4 catches a game, but they were always in such key moments. They led to touchdowns. They led to first downs that would turn into touchdowns only a handful of plays later. I think Dallas Goedert, as long as he stays healthy, can be a very, very key and vital weapon to this offense. And I think that, throughout training camp, there was a lot of reporting that Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert's connection was still there and was stronger than ever. And I think that it can be a really big year for Dallas Goedert. Sucks because he's on a contract year and Howie's probably not going to be willing to pay him if he has that big year, but we'll see. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I am going to go with Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith was given the keys to that edge 2, a more prominent role in the defense down the backstretch of last season. I want to see that continue. I want to see him continue to get after the quarterback. He's looking for a big contract extension too, in an edge market that has absolutely exploded. This man is looking for his 10, 15 sack season, where he gets that big payday that he's looking for. And I think this is an offensive line that he can definitely start things off strong with a couple sacks, 2, 3 sack type of performance a night. So I'm going with Nolan Smith as my defensive player. So prediction time, LJ. Who do you got winning the first game of the NFL season, week 1? We got 17 predictions to go. I think last year you beat me in the prediction game, but in a lot of the games where I picked the Eagles to lose, we won. So I see that as more of a win for us, is that I took it for the team. I took one on the chin. But let's start fresh, anew. Dallas Cowboys or Philadelphia Eagles?
And I will be keeping track. I got my, can't really see it, my trusty notepad here. The Eagles will be unveiling the banner, Super Bowl banner number 2, as they're going to look for their 3rd Super Bowl in franchise history and 2nd in a row. It will be a slow start for the Eagles. If you remember the 2018 opener against the Falcons, the Eagles got booed off the field at halftime. They ended up winning that game. It was ugly. I expect a similar start to this. I do think the Eagles will start picking it up in the second half. We're going to see on the defensive side, it'll probably be like a bend but don't break type of deal early on before that they start getting their footing. And then the offense, they're going to be trying things to see if they can get Saquon going, who was selected as the number 1 player in the NFL. So congratulations to Saquon. And I do think they're going to try to get Jalen, going, whether it's on the ground at first, just to open things up and then throwing it through the air. I have the Eagles winning 28-17.
Yeah, for me, I got the Philadelphia Eagles winning this one as well. Do I think it's going to be pretty? No, it's probably going to be one of those ugly get the rust off, grind it out victory, just get the victory and get out and look to next week and continue to improve things and move forward with this NFL season. I am going to go with, I don't know if I see against a division rival and even against the Dallas Cowboys after giving up Micah Parsons that it ends up being like a significant victory to your extent, but I got 31-24. I think garbage time Dak will definitely show out. I think that 24 is more inflated than it actually is going to be, because we're going to see classic garbage time Dak at the end of that game. So 31-24 Eagles.
So we both have the Eagles starting the season 1-0. And again, they're going to use after 4 weeks, if they're 2-2, it'll be like last year. So again, as Eagles fans, we got to be patient, hopefully.
Maybe not so though, because last year, that's because we had the bye. We have the bye a little later this year. Maybe there's an opportunity that the Eagles fans lay off if things start out rougher. But
well, I mean,
you are
looking at the schedule. I mean, the Cowboys, then they'll go to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl rematch versus the Rams in a divisional round rematch at the Bucs, a team that we can't beat and we seem to always play at Tampa in September. The Broncos, a young up and coming team, and then they get the Giants, and then the Vikings sandwiched in between the Giants. So, if we can get through those 8 games 5-3, obviously 6-2 will be great. But if we can get the 5-3, go into the bye, see how things go beyond there. But yeah, I expect the Eagles to be a very good team. They're going to be a very good team, but their record won't be as good as last year. If that makes any sense.
But, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, last year they had one of the easier schedules in the NFL. And this year, the NFC East, 3 of the 4 teams have bottom 6, bottom 7 schedules for toughness. They have some of the toughest schedules. So that's just what happens when your division completely flips from being one of the NFC least to being the NFC beast over a couple seasons. And the schedules get a lot tougher.
It's crazy that the Eagles don't have back-to-back home games, but they have 2 back-to-back road games, twice at Giants, at Vikings, and then at Commanders, at Bills later in the year. So the way that the schedule's set up for the Eagles is just really odd this year. But, I mean, if there's a team that can overcome it, it's this team and this quarterback, who I think is the perfect fit for this city.
Yep, he's got the right mentality. We know he does. No matter what they say, he wins. And if he can continue to win, the stats don't matter. How you projected them coming out of college doesn't matter. If they throw for 4,000 yards and 60 touchdowns, but they don't even make the playoffs, that doesn't matter. It's all about winning, and we preached it so much last season, and it looks like we have to continue it this offseason. When did winning stop mattering in the NFL? That is my end thought for this episode, because I just want it to matter again.
1,000% agree. Just win, baby.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Kelly Green Hour. We will be back. Undecided yet. We have the Friday episode at our disposal. We'll see how LJ's feeling. Friday or Tuesday, we will do a review episode of this matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Hopefully a W. In the meantime, there are so many great shows over at the Eagles Pinpool Network, so check them out. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, I will never call it X. Over at the podcast networks, wherever you get your podcasts from. Of course, like we said, get yourself prepared for the NFL season with that pinpoll code over at DraftKings. Save yourself $200 on that all too expensive NFL Sunday ticket and drop a bet and get some bonus bets. Why not? Right to start the season before you start losing confidence. Start using it now. Now's the best time to do it. You're saving the money on Sunday ticket. Go ahead and throw some money down on the bets. But until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Follow us at Kelly Green Hour on Twitter, at Connor10, TEN, at LJ Harrell54 on Twitter as well. And fly, Eagles, fly, baby.